Big Polly's World of Sports Sims proudly presents the recap show for week number 14. I'm Big Polly. As usual, a pleasure to make your acquaintance, and we'll show you what everything looks like at the end of week 13, and we'll go over the statistical leaders. We'll show you who's in the not who's in the playoffs, but who's primed to make the playoffs, who isn't, who's already been eliminated. Only one team so far out of 32 have been eliminated. And if you've been following the HTFL closely, I guess you could figure out what that team is. They wear orange. And then we will autoplay 11 of the 16 games and get you set up for this week and the 5 games that will be a part of week number 14. We are not doing a game on Thanksgiving. We're thinking we're gonna do 2 on Friday, double up on Friday, play one at 7:30, and then play a game for you right thereafter. Let's take a look at the statistics. As we head into week 14, Drew Brees still leading in passing rating at a 107.4. Walter Payton has emerged as the leading rusher at 1,511 yards. Julio Jones still leading in receptions at 72. Jim Brown now leading in non-kickers of 110 points. So that would be, if I do my math real quick here, 108 would be, let me see here, 18 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion. Steve Zerline, still leading with the St. Louis Maroons. He's got 97 points, scoring amongst kickers. Julio Jones also leading in receiving yards at 12-18, well above Torrey Holt and Smith out of Jacksonville. Kevin Green, still your leading sackmaster at 10. Dave Brown and Larry Wilson still leading in interceptions at 5. Zach Thomas still the leading tackler at 104. San Francisco with the best offense, followed by Cleveland, Baltimore, Green Bay, Indianapolis. The best defense in the league is Washington, San Francisco, Seattle, Los Angeles, and New England right behind them. San Francisco number 1 on the hit parade and the power rankings. Baltimore has now moved to number 2. LA, New York, Green Bay 3, 4, and 5. So we'll look at the passing category a little bit more. Milt Plum still number 2 in the ratings, but he has not played much since filling in for Otto Graham early in the season. Kurt Warner still leading in passing yardage. Eli Manning leading in touchdowns. I nearly said Peyton Manning. And Jim Everett, the quarterback with the best interception percentage. Rushing, it's Peyton, Jim Brown, LaShawn McCoy, Emmitt Smith, and Eric Dickerson. Peyton also has the most attempts at 266 right now. Jim Brown leading with the per carry average at 6.3 and has 17 touchdowns. Receiving, we'll look into that in a little greater detail. And we were telling you Julio Jones way ahead in yardage. Paul Warfield still leading in average yards per catch at 24.1, well over Terrell Owens at 20.1. And Smith there, Jimmy Smith leading in touchdowns with 10, and he got a couple of guys at 9, Zach Ertz of Las Vegas and Todd Heap of Baltimore, and then you got a few more at 8. Defensively, we were telling you about Brown and Wilson leading in interceptions, Green leading in sacks, Thomas leading in tackles. Greg Townsend of Las Vegas leading is tied with 2 others, Dent of Chicago and Short of Carolina with 19 hurries. In deflections, Donnie Shell of Pittsburgh and Lawyer Malloy leading at 24. It's Stuffs, Donald of Los Angeles at 16. Fumble recoveries, we have 3 at 5. Bruiser Kennard of Las Vegas. Warren Moon in Houston. And Tom Brady at New England. Forced fumbles, Phillips of San Diego and Beeson in Carolina at 8. An opponent's completion percentage, which is kind of a neat little stat. Jimmy Johnson of San Francisco leading at 28.9. Special teams. Chris Jenkins of Arizona. Is it Chris Jenkins? Let me see. Marte Jenkins, he's leading at 29.1 in terms of kick returns. Kern leading in both punting, gross, and punting net, 47.2 and 42.9 respectively. Humphreys of Tampa Bay leading at punt returns, 13.4. And we told you Zerline was leading amongst scoring in kickers in scoring with 97. Walsh, the best field goal percentage right now, 87.5. Actually, he looked like he might be tied with Rod Baronis. Dante Hall, leading in return yardage at 1474. Zerline has made 22 field goals. That's the league high. Baronis has made 6 field goals of 50 or more. That is the league high. And that does it. We'll now take a look at the playoff projections. And I have updated the Jeopardy board a little bit. Rest in peace, Alex Trebek. Last time I did the episode, he was still alive and with us, and he died a couple of weeks ago. So Godspeed to Alex Trebek. Let's see what we got here. I changed the board a little bit to denote who is leading the divisions, who the wild cards would be, who is still in the hunt, who still has a mathematical chance, and who has been eliminated. As you look to the north, the one seed would be Green Bay. Baltimore has now moved into 2 with Cleveland falling apart a little bit. Minnesota and Cleveland will be the wild cards. Everybody is still in play. Chicago, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Detroit. No one's been eliminated. In the East, New York, Washington, St. Louis, and New England. Everybody's still in play. No one has been eliminated. In the South, Carolina, Houston has now moved to number 2. New Orleans is number 3, and Indianapolis is number 4. Tennessee, Atlanta, and Jacksonville are in the hunt. Tampa Bay has been eliminated. In the West, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Kansas City, and Denver would be the 4 teams if it ended right now. Everybody's still in play. Nobody has been eliminated. And with that, we will get you to the recaps of the 11 games I am about to play. We're going to start with, we're doing 11 games. We're going to leave 5 and then do those during the course of the week. Tampa Bay and Jacksonville, the 2 worst teams in the league. And one of them might be getting their first win here. And they do. The Buccaneers finally win one, 20-16. They get off the schneid and get their first win. We'll first look at the scoring summary on a 67-degree day at the Ray J. And the Bucs had a lead early. It was 20-15, not 20-16. My apologies. And they were up 20-6 at the end of the third quarter. Jacksonville made a little bit of a comeback. They missed a 2-point conversion that would have cut it to 3. And Tampa Bay finally prevails. They had 277 yards of total offense. Jacksonville 247. Both teams hit all of their red zone trips, going 2 for 2 and 3 for 3 respectively. Time of possession about even. Penalties, not too many of them, 6. 54 plays called by Jacksonville, 53 by Tampa Bay. So this was an even game. And we'll go through the player stats right now. Steve DeBerg outshined Mark Brunell. Warwick Dunn had a big day, 25 carries, 149 yards. Jimmy Smith, 6 catches, 52 yards. Jimmy Giles had 4 catches for 59. How about those Bucs? Break up those Bucs. They finally win one. Pozlowski of Jacksonville, the leading tackler, with 10. So the Buccaneers get their first win, but they've still been eliminated from playoff contention even though they won 20-16. We now go and we're going to look at Arizona and San Diego. San Diego has fallen on hard times. They're now 5-7, and Arizona 3-9. And your winner here was San Diego Superchargers, 36-21. We'll look at the scoring summary. Back and forth game. It was San Diego jumped out 12-3 on a touchdown, a touchdown by Ricky Young after a field goal from Katie and a safety by Junior Seau. Then Arizona got a safety, and at one point the game was 19-12 in favor of San Diego. Arizona got as close as 19-15, and San Diego pulled away a couple touchdowns. Arizona came back, got a 2-point conversion missed, and Kading hit from 55 with a minute 48 to go. The MVP of the game was Lindamian Tomlinson. It was 36-21 in favor of San Diego. We'll take a look at the team stats real fast. San Diego perfect in the red zone and had 428 yards. Arizona 2 touchdowns and 3 trips, and they got 304. 13 penalties in the game. Arizona called 60 plays. San Diego called 63. First downs about even. Phillip Rivers had the better day, a 103.8 rating. Tomlinson had 121 yards on 20 carries. Let me see here. Larry Centers had 11 catches for 114, but Antonio Gates had 8 catches for a $121. Leading tackler was Junior Seau, who had the safety, and he had 10 tackles. So 2 games in the book. We have 9 left to autoplay. San Diego now moves to 6-7, and Arizona falls to 3-10. Arizona is now the second team to be eliminated. They were 4 games down with 4 to play, and either a loss by Arizona, or if Arizona had won and the Denver had won also, they would have been eliminated, I think. So that's Arizona now joining the ranks of the eliminated. Indianapolis and Tennessee will be our next stop. If I can find it on the board here. Indianapolis and Tennessee. Indianapolis 5-7 would make the playoffs if it were now. Tennessee 4-8, and Indianapolis prevailing 28-9, which will enhance their playoff position a little bit. MVP of the game on this 54-degree day in Nashville was Peyton Manning. And it was Indianapolis getting off to the big start. They were up 21-0 at the end of the half. And Tennessee got a few points, but Indianapolis too strong, 28-9. Indianapolis had 296 yards, perfect in the red zone, 2 touchdowns on 2 trips. Tennessee 332. Penalties, there were 12 penalties in the game. Time of possession about even. 54 plays called by Indianapolis. 35 of them were rushes, which you wouldn't think with Peyton Manning in your backfield. And the Titans got 62. Manning had the better day throwing, 13 of 19, 147 yards, 3 touchdowns, gave up 1 sack. We had both prime running backs, Marshall Faulk of Indianapolis and Johnson of Tennessee, at 111 yards. Johnson only needed 20 carries and Faulk had 25. Britt of Tennessee, 7 catches, 106 yards, and he also led in receiving yardage for either team. Leading tackler was Tulloch of Tennessee with 11 tackles. So there you go. Indianapolis staying in the playoff hunt. They're now 6-7. Tennessee falls to 4-9. That gets us to our next game, which is going to be up here in the upper column. Buffalo and Philadelphia. Both teams 5-7. Buffalo prevails 10-7. And we will look at how that happened on a 30-degree day in Philadelphia. It was 7-7 at halftime, and Lindell hit a field goal in overtime for the 10-7 win. So this looked like a good defensive struggle. 291 yards for Buffalo. Both of their trips to the red zone successful. Philadelphia went 1 of 2 and got 361 yards. 15 penalties in the game. 68 plays called by Buffalo, 72 by Philadelphia. And we'll look at the player stats. McNabb had the better game throwing, 24-37, 250 yards, a touchdown, 93.3. LaShawn McCoy, 122 yards. No, it wasn't Thurman Thomas. It was Pete Pihos had the best day, 12 catches, 124 yards. The tight end for Philly. And the leading tackler was Brian Dawkins of the Eagles, with 11. So Buffalo 10, Philadelphia 7. Buffalo moves to 6 and 7, and Philadelphia now 5 and 8. Chicago and Detroit will be our next stop. And this was a shutout, 23-0 in favor of Detroit. At Ford Field, you saw it there. Detroit got all the scoring. 3 Eddie Murray field goals. Watkins ran in 2 touchdowns. And we'll look at the team stats. Chicago, a pathetic 175 yards worth of total offense. Detroit, 426, scored both times in the red zone. 16 penalties in the game. 52 plays called by Chicago. And 65 called by Detroit. There were 37 first downs in the game. And as we look to the player stats, it is Orton not having a good game. 11 of 30, 104 yards. Stafford had the better game, 14 of 28, 232. Barry Sanders had 22 carries, 145 yards. He must have got hurt as the game progressed, because Watkins got both scores. And the leading tackler was Tillman at 9 tackles. So there you go, 23-0, and that's 5 games down. We're now going to look at Miami and Dallas. Dallas came in 6 and 6. Miami came in 5 and 7. By the way, Detroit moved to 5 and 8, and Chicago moved to 6 and 7. In the Miami-Dallas game, Dallas wins 34-16. And we'll show you what happened here. Dallas got off to a 14-0 start. Miami got it to 14-10, then they got it to 21-13. But Dallas prevailed. They were leading all the way. It was at Cowboy Stadium. Herschel Walker won the MVP of the game honors. 425 yards by Dallas, 260 for Miami. Dallas went 5 of 6 in the red zone. Miami perfect in the red zone, but both of them were field goals, both of their scores. Dallas had a very big lead in time of possession, 39-48 to 2012. 9 penalties in the game. 80 plays called by Dallas, 65 called by Miami. And we'll look at the player stats. Tony Romo had the better game passing, 17 of 32, 180 yards. 2 touchdowns. 149-yard day for Emmitt Smith, 5.5 average. Herschel Walker, 17 for 82, and he had the 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns for Dallas. Leading receiver was, well, we had Clayton with 7 catches, and we had Jason Witten with 7 catches, but Clayton had the better yardage, 7 for $107. And as we look at the leading tacklers, that would be Anderson and Thomas of Miami at 12 each. So Zach Thomas will probably keep his tackles lead. And again, your final was 34-16. Dallas now moving above 500 at 7 and 6, and Miami falling apart at 5 and 8. That gets us to our next game, which will be New Orleans and Houston, and we have 4 more to go after this. New Orleans and Houston. New Orleans prevails, so they will get the sweep over Houston and take the division lead, even though they are 6 and 7. You see the scoring summary there, Reliant Stadium. Home of the Houston Texans, but we call the Houston franchise the Houston Oilers, combination of the Oilers and Texans. Drew Brees, the MVP, a 34-20 win for the Saints. Net offense, 484 out of Houston. They scored 4 out of their 5 trips to the red zone. 317 for New Orleans. They went 2 out of 3. Time of possession was even, 21 penalties in the game, so that must not have been a pleasant game to watch. 74 plays called by Houston, 58 by New Orleans. Leading passer was Drew Brees, 17 of 31, 244, 3 touchdowns. Leading rusher, Earl Campbell, 14 carries and 78 yards. Andre Johnson was the best receiver, 10 carries, 133 yards, 10 catches for 133. And the leading tackler was Ryans of Houston with 12. So New Orleans beats Houston. We have a tie on top in the lower south at 6 and 7. Both teams will be at 6 and 7. And New Orleans will have the head-to-head sweep. So they will have the division lead again, and they will be the number 2 seed if the season were to end after week 14. But we play 3 more weeks after this. Carolina and Atlanta will be the next stop. Carolina 7 and 5, Atlanta 4 and 8. Atlanta prevails 31-24 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Matty Ice was the MVP. 2 touchdowns scored by Atlanta. Actually, 10 points by Atlanta in the last 4 minutes, 4 seconds of the game, including Ryan throwing a 13-yard pass to Jim Mitchell to give them the 31-24 win. 392 yards for Atlanta. They scored each trip to the red zone. Carolina kept misfiring in the red zone, only 4 out of 7, and they had 328. 22 penalties in the game. Carolina committing 132 yards of penalties. They had 69 plays. Atlanta had 48. Going to the player stats, Newton was outshined by Ryan, 20 of 25, 340 yards, 3 touchdowns. Had the perfect passing rating of 158.3. Leading rusher was D'Angelo Williams of Carolina, 12 of 73. Olsen, the leading pass catcher, with 10 for 96, but Julio Jones, explosive as he has been all year in the HTFL, he had 6 catches, 179 yards. And another big day for Julio Jones. Leading tackler was Brown for Atlanta with 14. Washington and St. Louis, a rematch of week number 1. These are all rematches of week number 1. Washington faltering a little bit. St. Louis trying to catch up. Your winner was St. Louis, 30-27. So both teams are now 8 and 5 in the lower East Division. You can see it was a good back and forth game. Went to overtime, which they don't show you on the game board here, but that's fine. Zerline hit a 28-yarder, 5 minutes, 11 seconds into overtime. Furious comeback by Washington. They were down 27-10, and they got 17 points in the last 6:54 of the game, including a Schweissen field goal of 31 seconds to go, and that tied it at 27. 433 yards for Washington, perfect in the red zone, and St. Louis 431. They were 5 out of 7. Time of possession was about even. Penalties 12 total, 9 by Washington. Washington called 84 plays, 56 of them were passes. So go ice that arm, Sonny Jurgensen. 63 called by St. Louis. Player stats, even though Warner had the better stats, Jurgensen went 32 of 56, 32 of 56 for 394, 2 picks, 2 touchdowns. Warner 21 of 32, 323, a pick and 2 touchdowns. Leading rusher was Anderson of St. Louis, 17 of 96. Charlie Taylor had the best day receiving-wise with 9 grabs, but the leader in yardage was Jackie Smith for St. Louis, 8 catches, a $1.59. Leading tackler was 13 for Ken Houston of Washington. So Washington and St. Louis now dead even atop the lower East Division at 8 and 5. Which brings us to Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Cleveland has been faltering a little bit, but they win today 34-17. Cleveland dominated the early going. They had a 24-7 lead at the half, and they coasted the rest of the way, a 34-17 win. 398 yards for Cleveland, perfect in the red zone. Pittsburgh also perfect in the red zone. They've got 296 in terms of total yardage. 10 penalties in the game, 54 plays called by Pittsburgh, 57 called by Cleveland, including 38 rushes. So if they had 38 rushes, I'm guessing Jim Brown had a big day, and we'll get to that in a moment. Both teams had quarterbacks with exactly the same rating, 106.5, so we'll mention them both. Roethlisberger, 23 of 32, 2 touchdowns, 182 yards. Otto Graham, 14 of 19, 196 yards. Leading rusher was Jim Brown. Who else? 21 carries, 142 yards, 6.8 average. His longest carry was 41. 5 catches was the leading amount, but both teams had a receiver with 5 catches. Brown for Pittsburgh, 5 for 50. Mike Pruitt of Cleveland, 5 for 77. And I'm not seeing anybody more 77 receiving yards. So that gets us to who had the most tackles, and that was Jack Lambert of Pittsburgh with 11. Pittsburgh is now 5-8, and Cleveland now 8-5, which leaves us with Cincinnati and Baltimore. Baltimore 8-4, and they were leading in the lower north as we came into play today. Baltimore prevails 35-24. And we will look at the scoring summary real fast. It was all Baltimore. It was 16-7 at one point, 2 touchdowns and a safety. Cincinnati got a little bit of a scoring spree going, and they led 24-16 at one point, but then Baltimore turned it on. 20-yard field goal by Tucker. Unitas threw a 39-yard pass to Roger Carr. Tucker hit a 24-yard field goal, and Jermaine Lewis sealed the deal with 4:07 left with a 68-yard punt return. 469 yards is what Baltimore had. 8 trips to the red zone, only scored 4 times, but they still won. Cincinnati perfect in the red zone. They scored 379. They had 379 yards. 8 penalties in the game, so it was well played. 68 plays for Cincinnati and 65 for Baltimore. We'll look at the player stats, and we'll show you what we have on tap for you this coming week. I'm scrolling a little too early. Let me come back here. Johnny Unitas, 20 of 32, 361 yards and 98.6 rating. Leading rusher was Corey Dillon, 20 of 97 for Cincinnati. The leading pass catcher, Ross of Cincinnati, 9 for 76. But Todd Heap had another big day, 4 catches, 117 yards for Baltimore. And the leading tackler was LeClaire of Cincinnati, 11 tackles. I believe we have done all the games now. I'm just going to double check. 3, 4, 5. Nope, I've done them all. And we'll update the standings and show you where everything lies in each division, and then we'll talk about the games coming up this week, and then get on out of here. So, in the Upper East, you have New York now 9-3, New England 7-5. They will be the first game we have for you this week. St. Louis is now tied with Washington, so let's consult the standings real fast and see who would be leading. I'm going to show you my notepad that was over here on the other monitor and expand on that a little bit. Hold on, folks. Division record right now, Washington would have the edge. They split their head-to-head games, so it would come down to division record since it's 2 teams fighting for a divisional spot, and Washington would have that lead right now at 8-5 over St. Louis. Dallas now 7-6. We'll see if they could catch up to New England. Dallas and New England played earlier in the season, and I believe New England won that. Yes, they did 24-10. So if New England and Dallas wind up tied for the final playoff spot, New England would get it. In the Southern Division, you got a mess right now. You got Carolina at 7-6. You got New Orleans 6-7. And then Indianapolis and Houston would be fighting it out, fighting off Atlanta for the last wild card position. And who would get the tie between Houston and Indianapolis? Now, did Houston and Indy play this year? They did not. So it comes down to points, net points. Indianapolis is 46 in the hole, and Houston's 52. So Indianapolis would get the 3, and Houston would get the 4. In the North, Baltimore will still have the lead over Cleveland at 9-4. Cleveland will be 8-5. If Green Bay wins their game, they would be number 1 in the North. And Minnesota is 8-4. Cleveland is 8-5. The closest team that could catch up to Cleveland would be Chicago at 6-7. We haven't played many games out west yet. 3 of the 5 games that we're going to play during the course of the week will be in the Western Conference. So we'll take a look at them anyway. San Francisco 10-2. Kansas City 9-3. In fact, I don't think there has been a notable change. The only game that was played in the West was San Diego, Arizona. San Diego now 6-7. They're trying to get back in the hunt and join Seattle and Las Vegas and trying to catch up to Denver. And here are the games this week, including one we're going to be playing at 7:30. New England traveling to New York. Tuesday night, San Francisco at Kansas City. Wednesday night, Denver at Seattle, taking Thanksgiving off. Then Friday, we're going to try to do 2. Worst comes to worst, we'll just play a game Saturday. Los Angeles at Las Vegas will be the first Friday game. Minnesota and Green Bay, the second game, which would come immediately thereafter. If I got the Las Vegas game done in an hour, we do the second game at 8:30. If it took a little longer, 8:45. So this has been Big Paulie coming to you. We hope you enjoyed the recap show. We're going to be doing these once a week from here on out until the regular season is over. Godspeed and God bless, and we'll do it all again soon. And bye-bye for now, everybody.